This week we are doing Parsha of Matot-Masei. It's a double Parsha, meaning there are more Parashot than weeks in the year. So some of the weeks we are doing double Parsha, and that depends on if it's a leap year or not, the amount of double Parshas we need, and if the holidays are on Shabbat or in the middle of the week. All of that affect how many double Parashot we need to do. So this year we're doing Matot-Masei. They're the last two Parashot of Book of Numbers. And the topic today will be the City of Refuge. Very interesting topic. And we'll go. Okay, do we need to do the housekeeping or everybody here is?
I think we're good to go.
Yep, everybody here is on board. Well, we do have someone new, Lily and Akini. We do have a couple people new. We should do a little bit of housekeeping. Yes.
Okay,
Two new.
so a little bit of housekeeping. Number one, we try to stay on topic, meaning if we're discussing one topic, we're trying to stay within, obviously, the broader line of that topic. We are trying to make sure that everybody contributes, not just sitting behind, but participating in discussion. Scripture reference should connect to the Torah portion, right? Of course, everybody are welcome to bring references, but they have to have a connection to the topic that we are discussing today. Personal references and experience should also connect to the topic. And if we are citing a Christian view or a Jewish view, then we should say so. We are not trying to use it to preach or to teach. The same holds, of course, for Jewish. It goes for both ways. So that's just the housekeeping. Okay. Parsha summary. Moshe conveys the law of governing the annulment of vows to the head of the tribes. That's one topic. Two, there's the war against Midian on the role of plotting the moral destruction of Israel. There is a lot of details of the war and what happened and how they divided all the prizes and so on. Then there is the two tribes of Reuven and Gad, and later the half of Manasseh tribe that they ask for more land in the other side of the Jordan. And because they have a lot of cattle and so on, they wanted like a bigger portion. And this angers Moshe. And he, in the end, agreed to their request on the condition that they join the war, they lead Israel in conquering Israel, and then they can go back to their land. And that's another topic. Then another topic is all the journeys that Israel had in the desert. There are 42 of them, all the little stops and where they moved from to. There is a lot of names and places. All the places that they basically moved around for 40 years. And they give the city of refuge, and that they are designed as like a safe place for individual that killed unintentionally. And then there is the last topic, the daughter of Tzlofchad. We met them not so long ago, and they marry within their tribe of Menashe. And in this way, they keep their inherit land within the tribe. So that's just like a little part of like a little parsha in a nutshell. So we are going to talk about the city of refuge. Now, if we are talking about the city of refuge, it's important to know that we have a lot of what is a city of refuge. A city of refuge is there is two kinds of city of refuge, right? There is the six that are designed to be the city of refuge. There are also all the different cities of the Leviim that are also some kind of city of refuge. And the idea is that no matter where you live, you'll have some kind of city of refuge within not a long distance from you. So it's divided throughout all the land of Israel, and it's divided all across. So I brought some of the verses that are connected. We can read at least some of them, and I wrote in red the specific words that I thought are more important. So it's in chapter 35, and it says, "You shall provide yourself with places to serve you a city of refuge, to which a man who has killed someone, who has slain a person unintentionally, may flee." So that's the beginning. And then the verses, when you can see it also here on the screen, we have three cities on the other side of the Jordan, three cities on the original side of the Jordan. And those cities are for everybody, meaning they are for Jews, but also for non-Jews who are residents of the country. And anybody who did something unintentionally can go
Ruth and Rick, can you mute? Ruth and Rick, can you mute, please?
I muted him, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, second part of the verses. is explaining what is this unintentionally thing is. So anyone who strikes another person with an iron object so that that's the result is a murder. Meaning if you bang on somebody with a hammer, you cannot say, oh, I didn't mean him to die. It has to be something that you don't assume somebody will die from. The same goes if you strike somebody with a stone or with some kind of tool. Those are all, this is not the case of unintentionally. This is murder. But if somebody without intention, something happened to the victim unintentionally, for example, you climb on a ladder, you drop something and it fell on him, and something happened, right? Then it's considered unintentionally. And in such cases, the assembly should decide between the person who killed and the blood avenger. And this is interesting. What is a blood avenger? We'll see it later, but a blood avenger is somebody who is a family, usually a family member, like a close family member of the person who died, and he avenger the blood of his family. But he's not allowed to do it just because he's angry. A lot of the commentaries later explain that it has to do with it's part of the justice system, meaning it's not somebody just random, oh, somebody killed my brother, I'm going to kill the person I think who is in charge of it. No, there is an assembly and they decide if the person is guilty or not. And only if they decide that the person is guilty, then that person can go and chase him. So he's some kind of, I don't know, maybe like a bounty hunter or something. He had some kind of permission from the law. He's not just a random person. Okay, now the last section. So the assembly shall protect the killer. And usually when it says here the killer, it means a person who is like unintentionally. Because if it's intentionally, then it's not called a killer, it's called a murderer. And the assembly shall restore him to the city of refuge, and there shall he remain until the death of the high priest. Now, this is a very interesting topic that we'll discuss later. You can leave the city of refuge, and the person will not be allowed to avenge and kill you only after the high priest died. Meaning, for example, if you unintentionally killed somebody today and the high priest dies in 2 months from now, you'll be free in 2 months. But if the high priest will die in 40 years, then it will take 40 years for you to be allowed to go out. So that's very interesting. The time limit is not on you as the killer, it's on according to the life of the high priest. But if the killer ever goes outside the limit of the city, meaning if you are in a specific city that you are taking refuge in, and you decided to go to your cousin's wedding, and the Goel Hadam, like it's called in the Torah, the blood avenger, finds you, then he's allowed to kill you. That's allowed because you left the city that you are supposed to stay in. So you must stay inside the city until the death of the high priest. And then after the death of the high priest, no matter how long it takes, you can go out, and then the other person is not allowed to do anything to you. So I made 3 slides about explaining a little bit of commentaries about what it is. So slide number 1, what is the difference between intentional and accidental murder? So the Rambam Maimonides, he says, one who kills unintentionally, this refers to someone who causes a death without intention, such as throwing a stone at what he thought was an animal and accidentally killing a person. Or if he was removing a stone from a wall and it fell on someone's head and killed him. Such a person goes into exile. But if he kills intentionally or with intent to kill, meaning you intended to kill somebody, but then something happened, and meaning you didn't intend to kill him, but you intend to do what was done, right? Even if there was no witnesses, he does not go to exile. If there were witnesses and proper warning, then he's executed. If there was no witnesses and there is no way to do there is no way to prove anything, then he still is not allowed to go to the refuge city. He's either not guilty or guilty. If he's not guilty, then there is no reason for him to go to the refuge city. If he's guilty, then he shouldn't go there anyway. So he's basically punished by heaven. That's Maimonides. Next person, we say Ramban, which in English is called Maimonides. And he says unintentionally, meaning one who acted without awareness and without intent to strike his fellow. But the intentional killer will be judged to death by the court or handed over to the blood avenger. For it is not fitting that someone who acted with malice should be saved by the city of refuge. So that's on the topic of what's the difference between intentional and accidental. So that's one. Two is, what is the Goel Adam? Okay, the Goel Adam is the Hebrew phrase for the blood avenger. So the Goel Adam literally means the redeemer of blood, is a role described in the Torah referring to the relative of a murder victim. And in the biblical law, it says if someone murdered intentionally, the Goel Adam is permitted and sometimes even obligated to carry out as the execution, but only after the case has been judged in court. Meaning, like I said before, you cannot decide for yourself. There has to be a judge, a proper procedure, and only if it's decided, then it's on you to do it. And if someone kills unintentionally, he must flee the city to the city of refuge, meaning the person who killed unintentionally. It's called in Hebrew Ir Miklat. And if he leaves it before the time, then the Goel Hadam may lawfully kill him. And the purpose of that is the role balance justice with emotional closure, but it's strictly regulated, meaning the Torah takes into account that there is needs of revenge, but it has to be within the system, right? It's not a private revenge, it has to be after the judge ordered it, and it's part of the legal justice system of the Torah. And I brought here a few moral justification of the Goel Adam. So, for example, the Torah says, who is the Goel Adam? The closest relative of the murder victim is permitted to kill the murderer. And is it morally justified, and why? Yes, because it is part of the divinely sanctioned justice system. It's not a personal revenge. And here we have the Rambam and the Ramban that we read before, just summarized. And I have one last slide here. What is the connection between the death of the high priest and the departure from the city of refuge? Meaning the death of the high priest, what is the connection? Like I said, it can be a month after you kill somebody, it can be 40 years. What is even the connection? So Rashi explains that the contrast between the high priest and the accidental killer. He says the high priest symbolizes life, holiness, and God's presence in the nation. The manslayer, on the other hand, even if it's unintentionally, causes loss of life, which opposes the mission of the high priest. Therefore, it's inappropriate for the killer to return to society while the high priest is still alive. Only upon the priest's death, a major national transition, then he can be released. And there is another explanation here, that says that the Torah does not want the killer to suffer endlessly. The death of the high priest marks a time of new beginnings, meaning there is a new priest, it's new beginning, and a bit of softening of the heart. Another last explanation is it's that the death of the high priest is not just symbolic, it serves as a national act of atonement, and therefore people like that are redeemed. And of course, you can look at it. Okay. And now a few questions. So there is 4 questions. Question number 1. Is it moral to give a murderer, even if it's unintentionally, sanctuary within a city? And why do you think we didn't give a city of refuge to murderers who done it intentionally? And do you think there is a big moral differences between intentional and unintentional? And where is the line? That's question number 1. Question number 2, is the blood liberator or the blood avenger a moral idea in your opinion? Can revenge be part of a form of moral justice? Or it's always wrong? What is the moral message the Torah is trying to convey by not punishing the blood avenger who murdered outside the city of refuge? He's allowed to do it if the person left the city. So question number 3, if a modern state were to embrace the idea of blood redeemer, blood avenger, what would society look like? What is the difference between a blood redeemer and a modern legal system? Which do you think represents truer justice? That's question number 3. Question number 4, how does the murderer stay in the city of refuge until the death of the high priest balance justice and mercy? And is this also fair to the blood redeemer?
That's a good question.
That's my questions for today.
Wonderful. Thanks, Jonathan, for bringing up such an interesting subject. unfortunately a subject that's very relevant today.
Yes.
And what do you suggest, Hadass? We are big enough to split into two, or shall we stay together?
What do you think? We are big enough to split into two. We have 20 people, and we have a very interesting subject. So which way do we go? All right.
I say let's really make sure this time that everybody gets a chance to speak. And splitting up is the only way to do that.
Okay. All right. Give me 1 minute to create that real quick. And into two groups, you think?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's do that. And here we go.
Do we have it in the chat?
I think
The
we're
questions?
and we'll put once we split up, we'll put them in the chat because they won't travel with us if they're in the
Really
chat now.
interesting.
Okay, so 9 and 9 in each room. Here we go. All right. And here we go. All right. So we'll see everybody back in about 30 minutes. All right.
I think the session was very interesting and it needed more time.
Yes, you were gone for a little while there, Jane. Glad you came back. We missed you. Ah,
Jonathan, when you're talking about saying because the president dies, everybody's going out of prison, but that's not what happens.
Yeah, of
Because
course not.
we're talking about the unintentional, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, I'm sure some people find a way to abuse the system and make
Oh,
it
yeah.
look unintentional, right?
Absolutely.
Just like today, I'm sure there are people who find ways to do it.
Or some people hire very good lawyers.
Yeah.
they hire very good assassins.
They got lots of money to pass under the table.
Woo! All right, we just spent 45 minutes talking about the Mossad. What would you like to talk about, room one?
Oh, now we're dying to hear a summary of what you talked about. If you talked
No,
about
we're in room
Mossad.
two. I'm just kidding. I also make
So I'll try to summarize very quickly. We had a very interesting discussion about the correction systems that we're familiar with in the West and how the notion of these cities of refuge is so much better when it comes to correction, helping a person who has unfortunately fallen to a place where innocent lives were lost due to him. And I actually mentioned the story of a soldier I know in the IDF who, by mistake, resulted in the death of another soldier, and he literally exiled himself to a place where, with rabbis and very devout people, for 7 years. And in order, recognizing how this is the best way for him to be more worthy of such things not happening by his hand. So we very much talked about that. And we also talked a little bit beyond the matter of the city of refuge about the Levites and the Levite cities and the role that they played. And Moshe explained very beautifully why a high priest, why things change when the high priest passes away, because he's essentially the dean of these schools that existed in each of these. He's the one who's responsible for the entire Levite and priesthood systems, and therefore he's responsible for the education of those who find themselves in the city of refuge. And when he passes away, when the dean passes away, it's really a time to say, okay, the education of this person is ended, and it's time for that person to go back to life wherever he lives, wherever he wants to. And we pointed out very importantly that those who were in the cities of refuge lived normal lives. They could live there with their families, they could work as usual. It's more the matter of being within that very holy society that helps him become a better person, that this is all about. That's primarily what we talked about. How about you? I'm dying to hear about the Mossad, please.
We did. We started with the Mossad. What we really talked about, Daniel brought this up. I'm not sure where Daniel is.
He's here.
But the first question, what was the first question? The first question was is it moral to give a murderer a sanctuary within a city? What do you think about that? And then it went on to the blood liberator. And we talked about that, how the Mossad is very interesting, because the Mossad doesn't just exist to keep Israel, I don't know how Daniel put it, just for our survival. I said, we find that we actually are dealing with justice on a level when it comes to murdering Jews. We take that very seriously. We take very seriously, even today, the murder of our own people. And then we also talked about the Holocaust, how it really wasn't about just saving us. It was really about retribution, very much like in that time. And we still continue this today. We've seen it so much in the last 2 years. So we really have a deep sense, and that was the underlying theme, is that we have a deep sense of justice. And we also have a deep sense of mercy. So we see that because of the way we even treat our enemies, or we treat like that with our treatment of the Palestinians, and making sure that they have food and water. And we have this deep sense of both of those attributes. So we did talk about that. And then we talked about other things. Who would like to help me? Yonatan, we talked about the whole system, the difference between a city of refuge then and the criminal systems today. So we talked about that. Okay, someone else like to chime in here, please?
Well, the difference between a redeemer and an avenger. In English, it says avenger. In Hebrew, it says redeemer. And how is what's happening being redemptive to anybody?
I think one of the very interesting points we also mentioned in our group is that after Cain and Abel, and also after the flood, and also in this week's Parsha, there is a very strong message from the Torah that any loss of innocent lives is a terrible thing that has to be redeemed. You can't just ignore it. And it's our joint responsibility with God to put an end to it. The laws that we studied today, that Yonatan presented to us, essentially enable us to try to do this. Sometimes, if a person does it intentionally, the only way to redeem it is capital punishment to that person. But if a person did it unintentionally, then that person obviously needs a lesson in the importance of preserving life and sanctifying life, and learning to be a better person and a more sanctified person, as he would in a city of refuge. So it's really all about never accepting the loss of life, and always trying to make life more sanctified and meaningful. And these laws all combine to achieve these goals. And unfortunately, we live in a region where life is very often not treated as something that has to be preserved, and is even the loss of life is actually used as political tools. It's just shows us the
Actually, that's really interesting, Yair, because if you take somebody and put him in a city of refuge, you're setting him apart, which is what the meaning of sanctification is. So you're saying that what that means is that he has to live a more sanctified life, and he's going to learn that there.
exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
Indeed. So, would anybody else like to add a final statement before we've reached the end of our time?
I want to say one thing.
Yes.
So on our Noam Fellowship, okay, we have put a link and we are asking everyone to go on and to give either a video, preferably a video, or a text, a reflection, a testimony of how you enjoy them every week. What are some of the key points that you have gleaned over the time that we've been together? And we are doing this because we actually are using this as a springboard, because we are creating something that is very important for our fellowship, and that is an AI Torah study mate. This is a very cool AI assistant to help all of us study together even more deeply and better. And we'll be showing you that. Hopefully next week we should have a good prototype. And in the meantime, we're going to use it to help build a global movement to get everybody studying Torah together. We want you to come along and be right in the forefront of everything that we're doing. Please go to the link and give us your testimony, and we'll be sharing with you more in the coming days.
I have to emphasize that Hadass made it so easy to use. You don't have to use any special recording and send it an email, nothing.
No,
You just
no.
click on it, it'll tell you exactly what to do. You'll click again and you'll speak to it and it's recorded. And it's as simple as anything you could possibly imagine. And of course, there's also textual responses that you're welcome to give, whether you want a video, whether you want to write it. So please just take off a few minutes to do this. It'll be very helpful for us, and we greatly appreciate it. Okay.
Can I add one more thing?
Of
Sure.
course.
About the City of Refuge? Thank you, Jonathan. You did an excellent presentation.
Oh,
But being on a freeway, I thought I'd give you an analogy with a freeway. On the freeway, there's an act of mercy. If there's you need to make an emergency phone call, and you can pull off into this phone call refuge, and you can get direct help. So today I've learned that a city of refuge is a place to draw closer to Hashem. It's a free phone call.
Wonderful.
Maybe that's why when the high priest dies, you get out, because he was your line to God.
Exactly.
I mean, that was one thing we did talk about. We also talked about the high priest. He also had not only the authority, but he also had this intuitive experience of dividing between what would be unintentional and what is intentional. And he really had that kind of discernment to know whether something, not just according to law, but according to the heart, really would fall into the unintentional and go into the city of refuge versus the intentional. So he played a very big role in that, just like leaders and rabbis, others do today, in knowing, being able to discern just that nuance of what was the motive behind the action. So we did share that.
Wonderful.
you.
Christiane, did you want to say something?
No.
I thought I saw your hand up.
No, I just did that to Dean. Very good point for the phone call.
Again, thanks everyone, especially to Jonathan for this presentation.
Very good. Yeah.
May everybody have a
you.
wonderful week. May we have only good tidings. Next week is interesting because it's going to be Sunday on the fast of 9th of Av. 8 o'clock will be more or less when we start breaking our fast.
We'll do a little kiddush, like
what?
a live kiddush. We should do a live kiddush, like in COVID times.
So for those of us who are fasting, well, I don't know, there will people like Alan will be in the middle of their fast, so I don't know. I don't know if I want to eat in front of him, but
That's all right. Do what you got to do.
we look forward to having a meaningful session. So
Thank
everybody
you very
have a
much,
great
everyone.
week.
Sure.
Thanks, everyone. Shavua tov.